Welcome to the podcast, where street smart, business smart, all kinds of smart people share their insights into the world of marketing, career journeys, and personal growth. So sit back and prepare to get enlightened with your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, where I bring you the best and brightest from the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your life and career forward. My guest today, Jeff Mans, is a 15-year veteran of the fantasy sports industry and the outspoken frontman of SiriusXM, my alum, Fantasy Sports Radio, and the chief CC, I don't know what the other C is for. He's a chief of something of at least fantasy.com. We're certainly going to talk about that. Is it chief creative officer, chief operational officer, something? Yeah, one of those C's. And over the past 7 years, he's helped build Fantasy Alarm into one of the leading fantasy sports news and information sites in the world. And he has a 10-time daily fantasy sports live final qualifier. That's a mouthful. 2-time DFS final live winner. He's won it all. I mean, fantasy sports are the thing right now. We're going to certainly talk about that. We're going to talk about his radio show. We are SiriusXM alumnus. We'll talk about that. He is published all over. He is an authority on fantasy sports. He's also one of the featured leads in the documentary film Living the Fantasy, and we'll touch on that. And you can catch Jeff hosting a variety of live programs, including his own Guru Elite show from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time every weekday on SiriusXM. We'll dig into his career, fantasy sports, what the hell is happening with this crazy freaking coronavirus, and a whole lot more. I wish we'd have to talk about that, but we will. Jeff Mans, welcome to the podcast, my man.
Yeah, what is up, man? Thank you for having me. I don't appreciate it very much. I'm glad to be here.
I love turning the tables on hosts. And for anybody who's listening but not watching, this is the first time I am ever having a drink while doing my show. And it's just one drink, a little casual cocktail here.
Appropriately so.
We're in a crazy time, my man. And I'm not sure when this episode is going to air, but the day I'm recording it is the 19th day of the month of March in 2020. And we're in the midst of this coronavirus scare here. I'm in New York and Jeff is in Arizona. What's your take on all this, man? What's happening in our crazy world?
Dude, it's like I feel like we're on an airplane and we have turbulence. And you just, even though we always think in our mind it's going to be fine, but there's that moment, and we're in the ass crack of that moment right now where we don't exactly know what's going to happen. The plane is shaking. There's like a little bit of a dive. We're kind of going left and right. We're like, okay. Everyone's looking around like, oh, no, that's crazy. Well, I'm not going to be the one to start screaming, but
no,
you might start screaming. It's crazy. It's a wild time. We really don't know how it's all going to play out.
We do not know. And the oxygen masks have not fallen.
Yes, not yet.
The captain has fastened the seatbelt sign, and they said return to your seats and put your tray in the upright position. But we're in for a bumpy ride, my man. And, I try to balance optimism with my natural Jewish New York pessimism and cynical side of me. But also I really want to be mindful. I got 2 small kids, and I really am cognizant of their safety, legacy, and future. So I'm trying to balance all those together while being a small business owner and putting all that together. So I take it day by day. I protect my family. I look out for my friends and family, and just hold down the fort, hold the line, man, and look out for each other, right?
Yeah, that's really what it's all about. I mean, I'm as skeptical of a virus. I've been through H1N1 and SARS and all these kind of things, and they say, oh no, but this is the real one. Like, dude, you and I are about the same age. We grew up and remember the killer bees? Like the killer bees were always my mom every summer.
That scared the shit out of me, bro.
They're coming up from Mexico. They're in Texas. Oh my God, they're good. And I was in Illinois at the time. They're like, it's coming. They're coming for us. I'm like, oh shit, the killer bees are coming. And they never really came. So, and then we've had a lot of epidemics. We didn't know 2 weeks ago, really, that this was going to be the
It happened a week ago.
Yeah, really, exactly.
It kind of started with the NBA, right? Once the NBA canceled that Pelicans game right in the middle, whatever that was. You're like,
Rudy Gobert coming down with it, and all of a sudden
touching all the mics.
Yeah. Oh, he does that. Then he contracts the virus, and oh yeah. So I mean, that's where we're at. Like you said, but the thing is, it's like it doesn't hurt to do the right thing. Whether you believe in it, you don't believe in it, you're high, you're low, whatever. You got to just, like you said, You have a wife, you have a family to protect, you have friends to protect, you have animals to protect. You've got whatever it is that's important in your life. You got to just let's chill out. Let's watch some Netflix. Let's relax for a while and see where this goes.
I really think society needs to just Netflix and chill, right? I mean, I think that's what it's really about. I think it's about taking an extended timeout. We're talking a more than a 2-minute warning timeout. We're talking more than a TV timeout. Everyone needs to chill. And you know what? I mean, it's interesting. There's so many silver linings that are going to come from this. There's so many advances in technology that are going to come out of this. And I don't want to go too down a rabbit hole, but there are some dark sides of it too, which we'll certainly park. So let's talk about what's happening in the state of sports right now. But before we do that, listen, I'm a recruiter. I told you that's what I do. And I like to start off every show. I at least want to get everyone's kind of career journey because it's fascinating. Because I am fascinated by how the hell does somebody get and I'm assuming, Jeff, that you have an awesome job because your job is to talk fantasy sports, get paid for fantasy sports. I mean, I don't know if you have any other jobs. I don't know if you do shit on the side, but like, let's give us a quick elevator pitch of the Jeff Mann's career story. Give it to me short and sweet. I want to spend this time talking about sports, but let's level set everyone here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sports fan my whole life, grew up, blah, blah, all that.
While
good
I
stuff.
sip my drink.
While you sip, when you get loaded, I will do this and not get as loaded. Wanted to be a sports writer. That was like my dream job growing up. I was going to be a sports writer. That was my whole thing. Went to journalism school. I had to take a medical with leave from school, like my appendix burst and I had sepsis, and it was like a 2-month thing. So I had to drop out of college going into my first semester sophomore year. And so I was sick for like a year almost after that, getting better. I had to go back to school. And at that point, it was like the computer boom was late 90s. And it was like, I changed from journalism to computer science because I need to make money. And I'm like, well, I can get a job better this way. So I did that while always sort of following journalism dream. And I had people around the Chicago area, that were helping me out. And I was covering local, I did my college women's basketball team, soccer team. I covered those sports and things. And eventually I was an apprentice and a stringer at the Daily Herald, which is the third biggest paper was in Chicago at the time. And I got
You're a Chicago boy. You're a Chicago guy.
Am. Yeah, I moved to Arizona like 3-4 years ago. Yeah, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and during the
You're
time.
A Sox fan?
Yeah, man, I'm a White Sox fan, dude. It's a quick story.
No judgment.
Yeah, Kirby Puckett. Remember Kirby Puckett, right? He's from the south side. He's from my neighborhood. He would come by apartment complex right across from where I grew up. He would come in a fur coat, mid-'80s, fur coat, and he'd have $100 bills. Pass them out. Just
give it back to the community.
Absolutely. He was beloved. I mean, you could not even say anything about Kirby Puckett. That dude is royalty from where I come from.
Let's talk about a pure hitter right there. I mean, just to digress for a moment there, we talk about in this day and age, I mean, we'll talk baseball in a little bit. Like we talk about these pure hitters that have this sweet swing, man. I'm a Mets fan. I'm a diehard Mets fan. And I see it now with Alonso and everything. Like, these guys that just fucking smack the and even Jeff McNeil, these guys that get up there and they see the ball, they have like that radar, right? Kirby Puckett, legendary.
But Kirby is like a self-made dude too. Like he did things differently. He was pudgy. He wasn't that fast. It was all about hustle, So yeah, he found his sweet spot. What he learned is like crouching down. He was one of the first to use his size for him. He was a small guy, but he would make that strike zone smaller, and then he would have that window and knew the pitch that he needed to hit, and he'd just destroy it when he got it. And he didn't fish for pitches outside of the zone.
Smart.
He didn't worry. He was willing to get on base and do all that, and then hustled his ass off to be a great center fielder and all that. But yeah, absolutely. And Kirby's my dude.
So you're in Chicago. You're covering local sports.
Yep. Yeah, I ended up working for the government. So I took a computer job. I have a weird story. I was working for the government. I was delivering mail as a mailman for like 4 years as like an apprentice or whatever. And then graduated school. I did that while I was in school. I started a computer repair company on the side while delivering mail. And then eventually I got a promotion to postal service to go into their IT department. So I did that while building a PC repair business.
So you're solely responsible for the Postal Service coming to a complete halt.
Yeah, dude, I can't.
I kid.
It was almost out of business, I thought, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. When I was working there, I thought, I can't believe it's still going today. But so, like, I ended up selling that my PC repair business. I sold it to GE. Actually, it was a warranty. You know, I did all the warranties for, at that point, Circuit City, Montgomery Ward's, Office Max. Like,
Circuit City, blast from the past. Yeah. There we go. Circuit City.
All these contracts.
Hey, Circuit City, if you're looking for, I'm looking for a sponsor. So if Circuit City wants to advertise on the podcast, please come on board, Circuit City.
If anybody wants to advertise, let's go, people. Let's go. We could get bourbon or something at this point, I think. Now we're going
This episode is brought to you by Basil Hayden. Thank you.
Ooh, good one. I like that. That's a good. I knew I could recognize it through the glass. I thought
you could smell it. You could smell it.
I could smell it. So yeah, man. So that's so I sold that. So I continued to work then in an IT department for the Postal Service for what ended up being 16 years. And on the side, in like 2004, me and a couple of my buddies decided, hey, let's start a fantasy football website. It was big, you know. And back then there wasn't that big of an industry, but we could tell it was growing.
Yahoo had it up and going. ESPN might have had theirs. I'm not sure when they had their pages.
Roto World was
big, yeah. Before they got bought out.
Matthew Barry, who's a friend of mine, he was actually with Roto World at the time when I started, and then he had just gotten his own company, the Talented Mr. Roto. This is before he went to ESPN, so. Like all that happened in my first couple of years, and I would go and I would network with those people or whatever. So I spent probably 5 years, you know, in the late 2000s, just sort of writing, honing my craft, doing fantasy sports. Then we eventually developed into baseball. It did some things like that. And so from like 2005 through 2010, I was just back and forth. But it's a strange thing. I had a very popular for that time podcast. With my partner Ryan Hallam, and again,
so we're talking early days of podcasting. Before it was, I don't even think it was called podcasting back then, right?
It was just it was like
just coining the.
It was just coming out. Like it was like 07, 08 is when we had the #1 sports podcast at one point when nobody gave a shit. Nobody cared at all, but it was like, hey, we #1, whatever. And so we did that for a while. And again, the downloads were like. You know, now you get like 50,000 downloads and stuff. Like I think we had 900. You know what I mean? It wasn't that many, but at that time it was something. And that's where SiriusXM heard of me. I met up with a guy named Al Williams who was just starting Fantasy Alarm at that time, and sort of the rubber met the road in 2010, where I sold my company, my little company, to Al and Fantasy Alarm, and became a part owner there. And then I got on the air at SiriusXM as a once-a-week fill-in because the fantasy sports station just launched.
Yeah.
Mind you, I'm still working at the Postal Service at that time. So I'm still like, I'm still doing my day job. And now I'm trying to run a fantasy sports company and do radio on the side. So those couple of years, I left the Postal Service in 2012 and started doing this full-time then.
So where do you broadcast Sirius from now? You do it from your home?
I do it from my home office. Yeah,
you're hardlined into them.
Yeah, I did. We do they do Kodak access now. I have ISDN here too as a backup, but you rarely need ISDN anymore.
Yeah, so let's talk about your show for a little bit. Give us the TLDR on your fantasy sports show.
I mean, it's called Elite Sports. So I should mention, like, I was with Alarm, and then I left Fantasy Alarm, which is the toughest decisions I've ever made, but a new company called Guru Elite. And Guru Elite, we became one of the biggest companies in short time. Me, Tommy G, and the crew over there. We're now part of the Elite Sports Network. And my show is named Elite Sports. It's on 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern on SiriusXM's Fantasy Sports Radio. The way I look at it, Adam, is like, it's not like we're on a fantasy sports station. But fortunately, I've been successful enough on the network to get fired 3 times and stay there.
It sounds like
the program director, the head of sports, Steve Cohen, Scott Greenstein, head of all programming, they trust me enough that
I know them both.
You know all of them. So they trust me at this point I do a sports talk show with a fantasy slice. You know what I mean? Like I am able to, whatever happens in the world, Todd Gurley gets cut from the Rams, or
He's not that good.
Yeah, I know. Well, he not anymore. That's for sure. He lost a lot.
Don't worry, the Jets will sign him.
They'll give him $52 million like Le'Veon Bell. So you know what I mean? Like I'm about hot topics, and then I'm able to help people also play seasonal fantasy sports, baseball, football, basketball, daily fantasy sports, gambling, which is now legal in 12 states and counting. So
watch what happens. Now.
I call it a modern sports show, and I think we've been ahead of the curve for almost a decade now on Sirius XM, where we picked up daily in its infancy. We took up high stakes in its infancy, and now we're taking up betting and future and prop bets and all these types of things. So, we're talking sports, but also telling the fans how to make money from those sports.
Well, that's what's interesting too, and we talk about fantasy sports, and I mean, it really hit its stride, with the advent of the internet making it so much easier. But we go back to, I remember, doing fantasy sports early in my college days, and we'd have old school draft boards, right? We were doing it in pen and paper, and people were tracking stats. I mean, there's a lot of stories to that. I mean, that was only a year or two for me until we got into the modern age, and last year, it's crazy. This is the first year not doing my 20-year fantasy baseball league. We ended it last year. The commission just had enough. We ended it. And it was a head-to-head. It started as Roto. We had 12 teams, 15 teams. I mean, I've known these guys my entire life. And the thing that people don't understand, I think my wife gets it, the love of fantasy sports is not just a competition, but it's a shit-talking. It is the sheer amount of shit-talking that goes on. And we're talking people who do not understand fantasy sports. It is a depth and depravity of extents that you can't even imagine. The amount of personal insults that some of these leagues get, you have to have thick skin in a fantasy league. What do you think the appeal is, man? Is it, and it's not just for dudes, because we could spend the whole other episode on the advent of in fantasy sports, but what's the draw to fantasy sports? Why do people love it so much, Jeff?
Yeah, you know what? I think part of it, I mean, you hit it on the head right there. I think another part of it is a lot of us there's a competitive gene inside a certain segment of the population, and it turns out it's more than we thought. And, we're not athletes. We couldn't rise to the highest level. Right, exactly.
We're in comfort. We're lounging. I could drink into my job.
Yeah, I know. And I'm sipping coffee as we speak, and I'm jealous of you now. But, it's we want to win. That's what we want. We want to prove we're better. We want to win, and we can't play the sports, but we know the sports. We kind of can tell this guy's better than that guy. This team's better than this team. And our way, fantasy sports is a way of us proving our knowledge beats that of our opponents, our friends, our coworkers, our buddies, our relatives, or what have you. So
it's all competitive.
Exactly. And when we get that win, like you said, the shit talking, that is it. That's you. There's nothing better. And if you don't even know the people, let's say you don't even see the people, it's an online draft, you still are puffing your chest. I won the league.
There's nothing better. Did you watch? Did you watch? I know this. I know the answer to this. I'd be shocked if you didn't. You watch the FX show, The League, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah,
that sums it up. That sums it up.
I was on the Shiva Bowl. Really? I was on an episode. Well, John Hansen was on an episode.
Let's hear that story.
Okay. So it's not on my IMDb, although I do have an IMDb page. John Hansen is from SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. He's a very famous guy. Actually, he's the founder of Fantasy Guru, one of the sites that I now run. John retired and all that stuff. Good friend of mine. But he was on the show, his face and presence. Now, I always say I was on it because they did in this episode. They did a 3-episode arc where they were listening to our station. And in one of the things my show was on, at that time I was in overnights. And the character of the guy who was married, I'm told the redheaded guy, he woke up in the middle of the night and was listening to the station, and it was my show. So that's awesome. My big claim that I was in the
that show was so good. I mean, I love fantasy. I do. So it was a head-to-head league, and over the course of 19 years, I had three rings, which I think is not bad. 15-year league, and I've been in the overall winning percentage. Very happy. I love head-to-head. I love head-to-head more than Roto in baseball. I think it keeps you in it a lot longer. Each week you're just battling one-to-one. Roto baseball, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Roto baseball, you kind of, if you're out of it by, early August, you kind of know if you're out of it.
Yeah, I am in a lot of trouble in my industry, Adam, because I have spoken out against Roto baseball leagues because people – I love fantasy baseball. I love baseball. It's my first love. I mean, it really is. And but the game is dying. You just mentioned it before, your longtime league, and you're not alone. There's a lot of our longtime league from the 90s folded probably 8 years ago, and like some of us play in other league, but it's to the point, and I think it's because you don't get that win. In a Roto league, you draft, and it's fun, and then that's it until October, and you say, hey, I won, by the way. You just don't have that carrot, and right, wrong, or indifferent, our society is about instant gratification. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Roto leagues just don't suit that. So I spoke out against Roto leagues the last couple of years, and I'm an albatross. Like, I'm telling you, the fantasy baseball community turned on me significantly as a result of that, because they say that I hate baseball. And I'm sitting here like, I love baseball. Like, it's what I do. I'm in leagues. I talk about it every day, but I'm not diehard enough for them because I advocate head-to-head leagues. I advocate half a season leagues, and the season August 31st. Like, all this, like, daily fantasy, daily roster moves, daily lineup changes. Nobody wants to do any of that. They still want to play the way they did in 1986, and I think it's really hurting the game.
Yeah, I mean, not to get too technical. I mean, I love head-to-head baseball because to that point that you completely mentioned is every week is a championship. Every week is a battle. Versus Roto, you set it, you do your draft, you make some lineup tweaks, you do some pickups, maybe a trade here and there. But head-to-head's where it's at. So this year I joined the Roto League because I needed a league, and I joined the Friends League. And we're prepared. Our draft was supposed to be this Sunday, the 21st of March. And I'm disappointed, man. We parked it. We made the conscious decision to not do the draft. And I was for it. I said, let's do the draft. And some people like, you may get Giancarlo Stanton back. You may get Judge back. You may get, maybe Verlander. Let's see what happens with his groin surgery here. And that affects the draft. And I fully understand that. But my feedback to the guys was, hey, we need to keep a semblance of normalcy here. Let's just keep this shit. Let's just keep the draft and let's do it and like feel good about it. But I got vetoed out of it, and I'm new to this league, so I don't have much pull in that league. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Let's talk about this for a little bit because I think it's tough because sports has gone on hold, and sports it's what you look to in times when things are not good, when things are great. You always have sports as a consistency. I think the only time that sports ever stopped in our modern age was 9/11, right, when baseball stopped. And I think about that time. I'm a diehard Mets fan, and I remember it distinctly, that game when Piazza came back and he hit that game. I have chills thinking about it. I am a diehard. I bleed Mets. I am a painfully. I have Shea Stadium seats in my den right downstairs. Like I live for the Mets. We're in a really weird time where there's no sports because there physically can't be sports. And I think bowling's on. They're playing. Are they doing bowl? Like
there are. I mean,
the Ocho, ESPN, the Ocho,
the Ocho dodgeball tournaments. But no, that dodgeball would be bad at this time. No, so you're right.
Dodgeball should not be played in the age of coronavirus.
No, it's worse than
or two-hand touch football.
Ringworm with wrestling on the mats and stuff. But no, so they're surprised there's still sports going on. So like that's exactly right. And like from a business sense of what we do, like Elite Sports Network, and we run like a variety of sites, 3 different sites: Elite Sports Betting, Elite Fantasy, Fantasy Guru, blah blah blah. But we are an escape for people, Adam, and that's sort of, and I take that responsibility very seriously. I mean, I'm not just saying that; I really mean it. And so, like during this time, like we are as a company trying to find, all right, what can we do to help people escape? Because I said this a while ago, we're all on like this. And we're all in bunkers and held up at our houses. There's either going to be a ton of babies born in 9 months or a ton of divorces or possibly
and spouse murder. Spouse murder is going to go off the chart. And I say it it kiddingly, and I really hope it's not, but there's going to be a lot of spouse murder. And I think
then Dateline in 9 months is going to be on point. Yes. I mean, dude, it's true. So there's a lot. We kid, but there's hints of truth in all the good jokes, isn't there? So that's where we're at. So right now, dude, I'll tell you what, I'm horse racing. They're still running all over the country.
Are they?
All over the world. Yes. Yes, yes,
Well,
yes.
so the jockeys are on the horses, or they jockeyless horses.
No, jockeys are on the horses. They're not selling they have banned over like a week ago before. They were letting people into the arenas, not anymore, but they're still racing the horses. So they're
Huh.
doing that, and they're doing it all over. So we launched a whole thing at our betting site, like, all right, let's do with the ponies. I was into horse racing. Me and my one of my partners on the show, Ted Schuster.
So you could speak eloquently on the ponies.
Sure, absolutely. I pitched fantasy horse racing in 2007.
What the hell did Scott Greenstein say to Fantasy Horse Racing Channel?
He would be no dice on that. Although right now, but here's the thing with Scott, like the thing about Scott and even Steve and all the guys, like I said, I've been fired, but they've been opened up to me over the years because we've been very fortunate to have good listenership and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So very lucky. But like I talked about horse racing on my show today. And we're doing theories and things, and we're getting people that are interested, and I even found a way that people are not interested, just betting numbers or just playing at home with their kids, just to, pick them out of a hat game or something,
okay.
Just because we could watch it, and it's that win, like you and I just talked about. It's like, okay, I won, even if it's you get an extra piece of gum or a treat or a dessert or whatever it is. If you're playing for free at home, for people that like action and have money on it, you could still bet online. And
we need something. We need something.
Exactly.
We need something competitive. We need something, and not just Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and all that. We need something there. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, we're going to get this season back. It's going to be a truncated season for baseball, and I'm fine with that. What do you think is going to happen with basketball?
Oh, boy. That's a tough one because it's borderline outbreak. Yeah. Hockey hasn't been hit as much as NBA, but, I mean, I personally think that we would have more sports right now if not for the NBA outbreak, like the Rudy Gobert and everybody. I mean, Kevin Durant has it. Every day there's more and more
wasn't
teams.
Even playing.
I wasn't even playing, just being around the locker room. It's the way it's gone. And you don't know where the strains it comes in. There's a lot of foreign players in NBA coming over, a lot of like developmental leagues and a lot of germs. And there you go. So NBA, hockey. They're going and hockey. I think they're just going to do the playoffs whenever we come back. Let's say it's June 1st. I think we're just going to have a truncated sort of playoff system and
you're in or you're out, right? I mean, hockey, we're already there, right? We're already a playoff hockey season anyway in a week or so anyway. Like if the season, I think, ends the end of March anyway. Totally get that. We're into hockey. And hockey, they got gloves on.
Yeah. I mean, and
but there's a lot of fluid transferring. Oh,
dude, there's all kinds of theories on like the virus can't live in the heat, so you could play in warm weather. The virus can't live in the cold, so you could play on ice. Like, I don't think anybody knows. Those are just guesses from people randomly. So that's the unknown. We just don't quite know what will happen. But sports will eventually be back. I mean, it's not going away forever.
I think we'll be fine. And Jeff, we could talk for hours and hours and days about this, but I want to kind of bring it back to the focus of my show because dude, it's crazy. I mean, I feel that I could have a different kind of radio show. I feel like I could host, I don't know. I could get a show on Sirius XM. I mean, I know Scott, I know Ross Ape, and I know there's guys over there. We can make that shit happen. Yeah, Russ is an old-time buddy of mine over there. But I want to get back to your career. I mean, you kind of been through it all. What was that down point in your career? What was that time where you really questioned, what the hell am I going to do with my career? Let's take it back to that moment.
Dude, that's a great question because I've talked openly about this before, but not much. Like I went through a depressed state, and I didn't recognize that. I'm like, I've been married since 2000, so I'm going on 20 years of marriage. I have a daughter graduating high school this year. I've got
what's happening there with her high school graduation? Is she bugging out?
Canceled. She's broke. She is fifth in her class.
Talk us about that. Let's talk about that for a moment there.
Yeah, she's almost valedictorian, and so she has worked her whole life. She has been grade and goal focused, much like we're talking about sports. She's a high achiever, sigma cum laude. She's the whole deal. She's gotten into Barrett School, the honor school at ASU, the whole deal. And they canceled prom, they canceled spring sports, tennis, and they canceled her graduation. It's like, wow. I mean, she's devastated. But I remind her this: My daughter was she was in my wife's stomach during 9/11. So like this is an unbelievable arc of her life. Like we were pregnant with her during
Wow.
the towers falling. So it was like, you want to talk about the previous not known thing, So it's like, I keep telling her, kiddo, you have a unique life. Like you could woe is me all you want, but you have some freaking stories to tell when it comes to all that. So she's devastated about that, obviously. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick news flash. Chris Sale is going through Tommy John surgery. Makes sense.
It's funny because I predicted that 9 years ago. I'm a White Sox fan, and I always thought he was. I never thought he was going to do it.
It's his motion, right?
And so I'm only 9 years late.
So I want to complete the thought here about that down point in your career.
Yeah, so I went through a depression. I was working at the government. Like I said, I wasn't doing. I always wanted to write and to do broadcasting. Like I had changed because of an unfortunate illness that happened to me, and I built my whole life. And at that point, like 2005 through 2012, I was just in a career I didn't want, at a place I didn't like, and living a life and I had to do it because I'm providing for my 3 kids and wife and everything else. And I was just happy. I was not a happy person, and I wanted more. That's why I was working the side hustle for so many years and trying to make it happen. So those periods were the worst. They absolutely worst. And again, I was getting $25 a month from writing for fantasy sports at that time. And even at Fantasy Alarm at first, I was getting $100 a month, and then eventually $500 a month. And as it got more successful, the money came in. But at 2012 is when I said, okay, this is a story for you. One of my best friends was murdered. A guy who was a postal carrier. I worked in the IT department at the same office that he delivered mail. And one day I watched the opening day of the NFL. Chargers, I forgot who they played, Thursday Night Football on NBC. Watched the game. I'm writing my article. He didn't show up to work that day, and they had, I was his good friend, so they had me call him. Anyway, 10 o'clock news in Chicago, 11 o'clock, it would have been East Coast. On NBC comes on, lead story, killed in his garage.
What?
That day. And it was they tried to steal his car, and he was beaten and left for dead.
Oh, man. Jesus Christ.
That moment, Adam, I said, and there was a quote from, and my friend is Pedro Garola is his name. And he had written on our fantasy football message board at 1:30 a.m. The last communication he ever had with anybody was he posted a funny message on our CBS message boards. But he was going through a situation. He had went through a divorce a couple of years before, and he had texted me, "Life's too short to be unhappy." And at that, I went back through my messages because I was broken. I was just broken. And when that happened, I made that decision. I'm like, you're goddamn right. He was right. And Pedro didn't get to do his thing. He was working with me. He was doing some fancy sports stuff and working for us. And so life is too short to be unhappy. That's the moment I said, all right. And the next year, I got to get the fuck out of here. I got to get out of this life, and I got to build something. And I don't know where it's going to go. And my wife, God love her, she supported me. We refinanced the house. We sold our cars. We sold merchandise. She took on at-home daycare. She did all this to try to
do what you had to do, man.
Stuff work, and it worked. My family supported me. The kids supported me. So, yeah, that was the moment. And when that happened, it was just like, I went in a year blackout and just said, I need to get out of this job and get into something else, whatever that may be. And it turned out to be fantasy sports.
And you followed your passion. So let me ask you this question. Not many people do what you do, man. Not many people could say, is it a dream job, right? Because I have so many friends that literally live, breathe, eat, shit, die, sleep, fucking fantasy sports all day long. You make a living, and hopefully it's a decent living, take care of your family and everything. Doing fantasy sports, talking about fantasy sports all day long, man. What's that like, man?
It is, it's a dream job. It is a dream job. I will say that, and no woe is me, because I do make a good living and all that, but anytime it's work is work. because
Right,
I have this
fair.
job now, there's like, I have long days, like I'm 8 hours straight of broadcasting, writing. I stay up 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, getting articles on the site for our people who wake up with their coffee to read. So
Watching
when it's
games.
work, even if it's work you like, it's still work. It's still a pain in the ass. I
Yeah.
still bitch about it, but it is a dream. I mean, I do get to work from home almost exclusively at this point in my career. And I do get to follow sports and watch games that I love. I have a 9-year-old son that is so into sports too, and I get to share that with him. And we've been to Football Hall of Fame and Super Bowls and NFL drafts and NBA finals, and
You
like
get to
different
experience
events
all these amazing things that you wouldn't otherwise have access to.
that I always dreamed of. And so I'm very lucky. It's absolutely a dream job, no doubt about it.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this. What would you say to this point in your career is your biggest professional accomplishment?
Well, my accomplishment is the radio show, probably, because as much as I went to journalism school, there was no broadcast ability. It's just I was a kid and my mom raised me.
Right.
My mom drove a bus and she had a sports radio with her all the time. That was it. And I was on that bus all the time. So I picked up a lot of the cadences and the timing mechanisms, not even knowing it. I just kind of picked it up and was able to kind of piece together, what my flow now. So the radio show was once, it was once a few years ago, was the 4th highest rated show on all Sirius, and that's including both Howard Stern channels. It was Howard, and then it was the hits or country, whatever country music, and then it was literally at that point it was the Fantasy Alarm Show.
So we had Chesney No Shoes Radio. Is that what it was?
Yeah, something. No, I forget. I don't know if it's
Outlaw.
Probably Outlaw. So we were 4th, and that they were flying me to Madison, to New York, and I was at the Christmas party, a couple of those Christmas parties you were talking about, where Jesus, the things that I saw were unfathomable. I went to Madison Square Garden for a LeBron James game at the Skybox. They flew me to. So like that achievement and being able to build an audience from that is really something I take a lot of pride in and really appreciate it. Now, I've won 2 daily fantasy sports live finals. So those are like wins that sort of checked my box as far in terms of that my advice is kind of superior to other people's. I won $100,000. I won $100,000 at the Playboy Mansion in 2015 at a fantasy baseball. Imagine being around other playmates and having $100,000. That
was Hef alive back then?
Oh yeah, he was still alive. Yeah,
was he hanging out?
Absolutely. I met him, but he did not hang out. He just passed.
Was he like the crypt? Was he like the crypt keeper? I mean, what was he like at that point?
He was pretty much the crypt keeper.
I mean, that guy's a legend. Hef is a legend.
Exactly. But yeah, I did get to shake hands briefly. He walked through, and then he's like, "All right, fuck these guys." He didn't want anything. And then the next year, I won a $250,000 live final for football. So I'm one of only 4 people to win multiple live finals. Nice. Only 2 people have ever won it in different sports, football and baseball. So those are my crowning achievements.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. And what would you say is your superpower? And we're not talking about, being able to fly or be invisible, but like, what do you do that sets you apart from everybody on this planet, Jeff?
Drink booze. No, besides that, be a part. I love that question. I think one of the things I do well and why the radio show has been successful is an ability to identify with people and the audience. I've had an interesting life with growing up poor in the South Side and eventually, kind of migrating and moving out west to the northern burbs, the more, wealthy, worked for government, worked individuals, sold businesses, talked to people every day. So, I have experienced a lot of different people, all different, like races, religions. Like I don't mind talking about any of this stuff that other people don't like, because I've been there with people, I identify with it. I get our differences. And so that's something I take very seriously. That's something that I think I do well. I'm able to bridge the gaps. There's a lot of division in the world. And I don't just mean during coronavirus, but it's like, man, what side are you on here? What do you do here? What do you do? And I'm like, nah, fuck it. Like, none of that. And I'm just like, I'm in for whatever. And if we disagree, awesome. Let's high five. Let's shake hands, fist bump, and we're out. It's okay to disagree. So I think
it is okay to disagree.
Yeah, man. And people get mad. Like, they get pissed. It's like,
it's not personal.
I do a segment called Haterade, and you should hear, like, the people will tell me, not only how ugly and gross I am.
They say that you have a face for radio, right?
Oh, easy. Yeah.
I get that all the time. They're like, Adam, you were born to be a podcaster. You got a face for podcasting.
That is perfect. Now, they would be, you're a handsome man. I'm looking at you right now. You're a pretty handsome guy there. I have a giant runway-type face that looks like Jay Leno. And
if I go sideways, you get the,
Oh, you got the profile. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I got you. So, that's the thing. Yeah, people are like, they're passionate about hatred in a lot of ways. And that's, like, I don't care. Like, you can hate me all you want. I don't take any of that stuff personally. So, like,
I love it.
I don't know. I think that's sort of my ability to identify with people.
And last but not least, I mean, I ask this question to every one of my guests. I don't know if you kind of have like a finishing move that you do, but I love to get perspective. I love this, and I could go back on my 80 shows and I could say, I asked every one of my guests this question. Jeff Mans, right? You've been through it, man. You've been through the good. You've been through the bad. You've been through the ugly. You've been through the ups and downs. You've been through the coronavirus that we're going to survive. What do you look to pull yourself up when things are bad, man? What do you look to as your guiding light? And when things are great, what's a gratitude? What is that North Star for you, Jeff Mans?
Interesting. It's a great question. I mean, honestly, like, when you asked me that question and I opened my mind up, what it all comes back to really is family. I think that would surprise people because I'm considered sort of a wild child on the radio and stuff. But, like, my family, like, provided for my family and stuff like that is very important. But also, like, I lost my parents. Both my parents have been deceased for a while. My dad had a lengthy battle of cancer, and I was there with my dad. I didn't have a relationship with him very much because he was so sick when I was a kid. But I remember him going through that. So, like, there's this drive that he had to suffer. We were poor. We grew up in terrible areas. And so, like, there's this drive or fire that will not be extinguished because I always look to them and what they had to go through. And I feel like you talked about, I've been blessed in so many ways in life. And I think that I was blessed because they were cursed. I really do. They just had that bad, shitty hand dealt to them. So every day I kind of think, like, all right, I'm fortunate. Don't fuck it up. Don't screw it up. You're given this thing, just don't screw it up. And then obviously for the next generation, my family, wife and kids as well. So that's what keeps me going.
Jeff Mans, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Dude, it's been a blast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Where could folks find you? Where could they connect with you? Where could they hear the show? Give me the plug, man.
Oh, the plug. SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, Sirius 210 XM87, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Mans. I'm part of the underscore people. MANS is my last name. The website's elitefantasy.com, fantasyguru.com, elitesportsbetting.com. And then I have a new thing. I'm on TikTok. I don't know. Kids are into it. I'm doing TikTok. The Jeff Mans, all one word. Yeah, you can find me, The Jeff Mans, on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok, where I'm doing reaction videos there. So a lot of places.
Awesome. Jeff, I love this, man. I love interviewing. I mean, you're a pro, man. And if I could learn anything from you, it's just how to do this the right way. And hopefully, I mean, listen, in this economy, what's happening, maybe I will have I'll be a boomerang on Sirius, and maybe I'll have my own show. Maybe Scott Greenstein is listening and he wants to bring the podcast over to Sirius XM, but we'll save that conversation for another time. I'll tap into my resources. Jeff, thank you for your time. I appreciate you, brother.
Great stuff, Adam. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And to everyone listening at home, thank you again for joining us on the podcast. Please be sure to follow us on all the social media channels. You know where they are. They're linked below. Check out Jeff. Check out SiriusXM and all that good stuff. Remember, take your online, offline, take care of each other. Wash your hands. Be good, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode jam-packed with more incredible humans. For more info, please visit www.nhptalentgroup.com.